Hello, Billy here. Welcome to the Kscope Podcast. Richard Barbieri has a new album out on Kscope entitled Planets and Persona. Richard, of course, most famous for working with Japan, Porcupine Tree, Rain Tree Crow. I caught up with him in London recently to discuss this album and the little tour which accompanies it. But from Planets and Persona, let's start off with this one, shall we? This is a piece entitled Solar Sea. Richard Barbieri, that's entitled Solar Sea, from the album Planets and Persona. And you can see the 360-degree virtual reality video for that on the Kscope website, made by Crystal Spotlight's Miles Scarin. Imagines new worlds, colliding planets, ice crystals, volcanic asteroids. Said Richard, it's a totally immersive experience, and along with the artwork, another important addition to the album experience. kscopemusic.com/RB. I caught up with Richard for a cup of tea in London recently and asked him about the ideas and textures on Planets and Persona. The first thing I wanted to ask you actually is about the title, because I wondered if it was a way of bringing both small themes, Persona, and big themes together, or it was some sort of reference to astrology.
The duality thing seems to happen in three different ways across the album. It's the way we perceive things that to us at a distance might seem beautiful and peaceful and calm. Yet if you were in the midst of the actual atmosphere itself, it would be very turbulent and violent. So it's kind of this, how distance can change our perception of things. And there's also kind of a duality as well in terms of the human condition, love and hate, good and evil.
Is that a conscious or subconscious thing? Do you find yourself creating a piece of music and then wondering where it's come from and then trying to give it life by giving it that concept, or is it the other way around?
Well, no, you've actually just hit on the third form of the duality, which is kind of the way that I tend to work, and that is a kind of in an unconscious state, which is the artistic side, let's say, where you just start doing things without any particular thought. Working with very abstract start points, strange sounds, samples, tying things together, looking for ways of making things work. And then the next time you approach the work, you approach it as the logical kind of producer.
Right, okay.
As if you're looking and producing what your other self has done. And you start to think, I like that, and it's an accident, you didn't know how you did it.
Because it's extraordinary that you can do that without essentially using language. There's no words or lyric.
No, that's the thing as well. Obviously, with instrumental music, everything becomes a lot more subtle, but every track has its own meaning for me.
Okay. The press blurb is very keen to point out that there's organic textures on this. There's vibes and bass guitar and all the rest of it. Why was that so important to add those textures and make that clear that those textures had been added?
Well, I wanted to experience making an album as something akin to how I used to make music. Nowadays, it's very easy to get drawn into the software and to the laptop and being at home and getting inside just your own mind, and you kind of forget what you really enjoyed about music. And what I enjoyed the most is being in studios working with people. It meant I had to spend more money on it, and I suppose if I was a painter, you could say I've given myself a larger palette with more colours.
Yeah.
And nice to get the contrast between the electronics and lots of acoustic instruments, and of course the performances.
creative process work then? Did it start with the textures and you asked people to add their parts, or were you inspired by the parts they played? Which way round was it?
Well, I had things pretty well arranged, but I think it's been done with a kind of sort of jazz sensibility in a way, in that the arrangement was kind of set and a scene was set, and I left it to the musicians to provide the performance and the kind of focus. So now, I listen to the lead lines of the trumpet or the saxophone, even the voices, and they're all performances, and they're giving the work for me the kind of meaning. But so I worked in a more kind of I don't know. I took more of a background kind of stance, I suppose.
That's interesting you should say that, because of course you have power's probably not quite the right word, but it means that once it goes back into your studio, into your computer, you essentially have the role of the trumpet player, don't you? You can take someone's talent, someone's part, and use the best bits as you see them. How much did you do of that?
Yeah, not a little bit, but not too much.
Okay.
I think what I'm probably quite good at is articulating in a studio situation what I want from the musician.
Right.
I'm also quite good at kind of predicting whether they're going to be the right person as well.
Okay, so were you there much of the time?
Oh, of course. No.
Right. You didn't just ask people to send you stuff?
No. These were sessions in Sweden and in Italy.
Oh, very old-fashioned then, in a way.
Well, that was why I was saying that I wanted to go out and get in the studio. So it was done old school.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The only overdub that was done via email, let's say, was Percy Jones.
Oh, right, okay. So that must have been really enjoyable then, as you say, if you're with human beings again. We talked briefly there about lyrics. There are vocals on it, but they have been moved about to suggest that they are. It's almost like their own language in a way. Would that be?
Yeah, exactly,
fair?
exactly. And there's two kinds. One is actually performed vocals. So the vocals are live and performed to the track in the studio, and not kind of affected by me at all. And that came courtesy of Leeson Rylander Love, who's this amazing musician, saxophonist and vocalist, and also a kind of controller of gadgets, a magician. She's a magician. Right. And so she would do these weird kind of vocals without actually it being a language.
Okay.
And it was almost as if you'd found the perfect sample and put it in there yourself, but it wasn't. That was live. So that gave the album something very different and exciting for me. The other use of vocals was using them in a sampled, controlled way. But what I did was I sourced the vocals from various people, like my wife, Steve Hogarth, Tim Burness, and I turned them into instruments.
Okay.
So I synthesized them, I mangled them, and they all had the characteristics of different instruments. Okay. So the Steve Hogarth stuff became like a choir. Tim's voices that he gave me a long time ago, pitched up, were very kind of flute-like.
Okay.
Wind instrument as well. So I actually combined those with real trumpet in places. And then Suzanne, my wife's voice, worked very well as a kind of monophonic Mellotron voice.
Okay. Basically. Where are we at now, Richard, with music? It's a bit of a broad question because, you've essentially been doing this since, 1974? And a lot of it has involved using electronic instruments, which is now the norm. And yet the music industry has kind of sucked into two sections, essentially. There's the three major record companies taking up 97% of sales. And then there's this huge sort of cottage industry of which you and Kscope are a part, which has turned music almost back into a premium product again that you're going to have to pay that little bit extra for because more effort went into it. Yeah. What's changed and what's stayed the same in the last 40 years?
Well, like you've just said, really, what has stayed the same is what we've got here at Kscope and the way artists are making music they care about for people who care about music and take it seriously. But this is dying out. The larger kind of access you have to this vast library of music, I think the less concentrated you become on it.
Okay.
Now that happened to me when I bought an iPod. I put all my favourite music in that iPod and I thought this is going to be the best thing ever. And I started playing it and about 40 seconds in, I thought this is amazing. And then I wanted to go to another track because I knew I had this other track. So then I played that and I said, this is brilliant. And then I realised I wasn't listening to anything. Yeah,
you weren't actually listening to it.
No.
Yeah, because there are people that say that even if you're listening to music in a car, you're not actually listening to it because it's an accompaniment to what you're doing, i.e. driving.
It is, although that's how I listen to all music nowadays.
I must admit, I like it. I'm just the one that sort of like thought, hang on a minute, I really like listening to music.
I got interviewed by someone from a hi-fi magazine the other day, and they said, "And how do you listen to your music?" And I said, "In the worst quality possible."
Richard Barbieri from Planets and Persona. That's entitled Solar Storm. Before that you heard Shafts of Light, both from Planets and Persona, out now. And Richard is going to be making some public appearances, appearing as part of the Festival of Electronic Music in Birmingham on Saturday the 25th of March, a masterclass synth workshop Q&A at 9 a.m. The Birmingham and Midland Institute, theticketsellers.co.uk. And then on Sunday the 26th, an afternoon and evening with Richard Barbieri at 1:30pm and then again at 6:30pm at the Blue Orange Theatre in Birmingham. Same website, theticketsellers.co.uk. And then the London show on the Tuesday 28th of March, doors at 7pm at Hoxton Hall, hoxtonhall.co.uk, kscopemusic.com/RB. Now, Blackfield 5 is out now, the collaboration between Aviv Geffen and Stephen Wilson, and long-term Stephen Wilson collaborator Lasse Heuler has released a video of the track Lonely Soul. You can see it at kscopemusic.com/BF. Lasse said, "When I heard Lonely Soul for the first time, I just felt it was like a scene from one of the many stories I've heard over the years of people's experiences dealing with depression and anxiety." Quick reminder of some live dates before I go. Tesseract are playing in South Africa at the end of April. They're playing at the French Download Festival on the 11th of June. And Arctangent in Bristol on August the 17th. Catherine Ann Davis, professionally known as the Anchoress, her and her friends will be supporting Simple Minds in May and June on their acoustic tour. And Paul Draper, the former frontman of Manson, one of the most forward-thinking of all the 90s rock bands, has announced details of his first ever solo live shows in the UK. Leeds, Manchester's sold out, Glasgow's sold out, still tickets for London, Birmingham and Bristol. His EPs 1 and 2 still riding high in the top 20 of the UK physical chart. EP 1 has been in the chart for 37 consecutive weeks. kscopemusic.com/PD. I'm going to play a track from EP 2, the acoustic version of the lead track, Friends Make the Worst Enemies. I will speak to you again in the next Kscope podcast. Ta-da!
To destroy someone, you must observe these rules at number 1. Everybody's got their weakness. Get people on your side. The effective use of lies is how to work. Portray yourself as a victim. Never trust your friends. Just keep an eye. There's no doubt about it. Ooh, can you trust your friends? Do you keep an eye on them? Are you safe as houses? Ooh, now I feel like my head's imploding. Hit the wall, I'm comatose until my brain gave in. Feels like my life's imploding. History repeats. My past is catching up on me. Close, keep your enemies up close, 'cause your friends can hurt you most. Close, keep your enemies up close, 'cause your friends can hurt you most. To display your power, mix the truth with lies. Otherwise, somebody might believe you. The psychotic state is dreaming while awake in REM. Then the paranoia hits you. Never trust your friends, just keep an eye on them. There's no doubt about it. Ooh, can you trust your friends? Do you keep an eye on them? Are you safe as houses? Ooh, now I feel like my head imploded, hit the wall. I'm cold souls until my brain gave in. Feels like my life's imploding. History repeats my past. It's catching up on me. Close, keep your enemies up close, 'cause your friends can hurt you most. Close, keep your enemies up close, 'cause your friends can hurt you most. It's your friends that hurt you most. It's your friends that hurt